Hello, I'm the author of How to Escape Student Debt by Leaving the USA, which is available on Kindle. I would like to tell you why leaving the country to escape student debt might be the right answer for some of you. I was foolish enough to borrow money to attend law school. Despite doing extremely well, I dropped out after a year because I decided legal work was largely parasitic. I was able to graduate from undergrad without incurring any debt by working full time. Unfortunately, this was not possible with law school because the tuition was more expensive and the law school forbade students from working during their first year. Ultimately, I decided that leaving the country and starting fresh was the right decision for me. I based my decision on financial as well as non financial criteria, which I will describe shortly. 10 years later, I credit my enormous financial success, in part, on bailing myself out and starting fresh. I have met an amazing lady that I married, and I now have two young children. Additionally, I own a beautiful house, and I've managed to become a US dollar millionaire in my mid 30s, thanks to learning how to earn money, keeping expenses low to allow for saving, and strong investment acumen. I think some of you could have similar successes if you also had the temerity and intrepidness to escape a potential life of penury. The financial aspects of my decision were easy. I quickly realized that the biggest cost of repaying my student loans was not just the principal and interest, but also the opportunity cost. Instead of devoting a substantial percentage of my income to repaying a large debt, I allocated the money towards acquiring investments that appreciate over time. The money that one invests in one's 20s, compounding over decades, is staggering. None of the financially illiterate college cultists ever bother to tell people about this indubitable reality. I have read some articles describing cases of people leaving the United States and meagerly getting by in an Indian jungle or teaching English in an impoverished country. This sensationalist coverage presents a false dichotomy. In other words, the media falsely present the choices as between living in the United States, which the media always describe as the world's greatest country, and scrounging a living in some third world basket case. In actuality, it is possible to immigrate to first world countries such as Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, or places in Western Europe, provided that one has some wherewithal. Moreover, some countries actually have better living standards and higher salaries than does the United States, a fact that becomes incontestably clear to those who explore the world. The United States is living on borrowed time given the unsustainable fiscal and social trajectory. Those who are bold and enterprising enough to leave now will be in a much better position longer term compared to where they would have been if they remained in the United States and spent a lifetime repaying unpayable debts and struggling to make a living. Debt collectors and the US government are largely unable to compel borrowers outside the United States to repay loans. A person who has left the United States and who never intends to return is free to start over in life. I'm going to answer some common questions that I receive from people. Does student debt disappear outside the United States? No. The debts remain, and the outstanding balance will continue to grow due to interest and penalties. However, creditors and the US government are powerless to collect money outside the country. It is impossible to garnish wages, seize assets, or confiscate tax refunds. Additionally, one's negative US credit history does not follow one offshore, meaning that one can start fresh somewhere else. Have you been able to return to the United States? The strategy described in this video works for people who intend to live abroad permanently, no longer reside in the US, and have no US assets. In my case, I have traveled to the US several times and no one has ever accosted me. I avoid visiting the US because it's not very compatible with me, but I have had to travel several times because of work commitments. These days, I have several passports other than my US one, and I have entered and left the United States on my non-US passport. Is it illegal and does it feel immoral to walk away from your debt? Debtors' prisons no longer exist, so not repaying student debts is legal, but there are consequences for not paying. Ultimately, I weighed the decision in terms of benefits and consequences. The negative consequences are that I forfeit my right to live in the United States, at least on a practical level. I also know that my student debt balance has risen to an astronomical sum. If I were to return to the United States, the US government would use all of its tools to compel me to pay. On the other hand, I have been able to take the money that I would have wasted repaying student debt and invested it. This has allowed me to grow my wealth substantially in a way that would not have been possible if I had remained in the United States. I have been lucky to travel the world and to find a country with far better living standards and salaries than the United States. I own my own house, have a family, enjoy my life, and have plenty of money to travel and invest. Admittedly, I did wrestle with the moral questions. I would not say that I'm proud of what I did, but I believe necessity and the survival instinct impelled me to do it. Except for my one youthful mistake, I have been the paragon of financial virtue and discipline. A couple times in my youth, I borrowed money from friends and I repaid it promptly with interest. The reality is that declaring bankruptcy is virtually impossible for student debt. Additionally, I find that the US government and vested financial interests have behaved dishonestly towards me and many others by repeating the mantra that borrowing money to attend college will produce financial success. One might accuse me of casuistry, but I believe the US government is evil and it is acceptable to walk away from one's student debts. The US government itself is borrowing unrepayable sums of debt, which it will not repay honestly. It will default by stealth and inflate away the debt. Ultimately, I have a moral obligation to support my family. I made a cost-benefit analysis and I decided walking away from the debt was the right decision. Many businesses and governments conduct similar analyses. For example, many police departments in the United States engage in civil forfeitures where they confiscate property belonging to innocent people, knowing it is difficult for those people to hire a lawyer and vindicate their rights. I'm simply responding to this type of chicanery and crookedness by starting over in another country. Isn't the USA the greatest country in the world? Do you feel unlucky living outside the greatest country in the world? The notion that the United States is the greatest country in the world is absurd and typically advocated by people who have traveled and read little. The media and education system portray life outside the US as resembling a Save the Children commercial. Admittedly, living standards in the US are better than they might be in Haiti or Myanmar. However, there are also other countries with great standards of living, higher salaries, universal medical care, and proper paid vacation. Has the US government accosted me, or has it been able to collect any money? No, I've never had to pay a cent. I never left any assets in the United States, and no one has ever bothered me. I do take some steps to protect myself, such as not having social media accounts, doing an audio recording rather than a video, and not publishing my whereabouts. In the highly improbable case that the US government did find me, it would have to pursue the matter in my adopted country. The statute of limitations, which is the amount of time a party has to sue, would have expired. Most other societies would also find the idea of encouraging young people to become debt slaves to acquire a credential rather repugnant, and it's doubtful that the US could collect anything. I've also taken steps to own assets under a trust, which provides me with almost impenetrable protection. How can I learn more? I plan to do more videos and perhaps do one-on-one coaching for people who need help. In the meantime, you can go to Kindle and buy a copy of my ebook, How to Escape Student Debt by Leaving the USA. I've included a link in the description. This book is very cheap and it will provide countless useful tips. Feel free to leave your questions in the comments section and I'll try to answer them in future videos. If you like the video, please click on the like and subscribe to future videos. More importantly, please share the video. Thanks for listening.